Let's pivot now, though, and before we get to this next story, we want to make sure everyone at home is fully aware and has time to kind of contemplate this. Some of the images involved in this next story are extremely graphic, and there's a reason for that. We feel like it's warranted, but we'll just sum it up like this. Lately, headlines are mounting about the poaching of animals. Here in Portland, actually, we've had 2 incidents involving bald eagles just in the last year. So KGW producer Kendall Swank went to find out how bad this situation is in Oregon. And once again, we do want to warn you, some of the images that you're about to see might not be suitable for all viewers.
These disturbing images show what many people imagine when thinking about poaching in the state of Oregon. Lifeless animal carcasses left behind to rot. But the reality is, this is where the mass majority of poaching happens in the state. What you think you know about poaching is far from the truth.
Oregon has a poaching problem, and we've gone to great lengths to really bring the public on board with some of the issues that our fish and wildlife are facing, frankly, at the hands of people who disregard laws.
Yvonne Shaw with Oregon Fish and Wildlife says the state has always had a lot of poaching, but officials haven't been good at telling the story. That's why Fish and Wildlife started a campaign called Turn In Poachers, or TIP.
What we really want to do is teach people how to recognize poaching when they see it, and then empower them on how to make that phone call to Oregon State Police and to report what they're seeing.
Before we get to that, let's take a look at the current state of poaching in Oregon. It comes in all shapes and sizes. Poaching can be illegal hunting or capturing of wild animals, possibly thrill kills when people just kill the animal without harvesting any of it. Poaching can also come down to land use rights.
If you don't have authorization to be on private property, by definition, you're poaching.
Steve Hagan with the Oregon Hunters Association has been advocating for stop poaching for years. He leads the group's anti-poaching tips line and is one of the boots on the ground that reports questionable behavior in the woods.
Citizens of Oregon should be outraged when wildlife or fish that they enjoy are taken in a manner that is not lawful.
This is a breakdown of the numbers related to poaching in the state from 2012 to 2020. Crabs, clams, and pink shrimp are the vast majority of incidents over the 8-year stretch, followed by every imaginable marine life like trout, tuna, and different types of native salmon. Hundreds of deer and elk are poached every year, and dozens of other large animals like bears. For Hagen, one of the most difficult animals to see poached is bighorn sheep. According to data from the state, there are only 3,200 of them in Oregon, and poaching one can cost up to $50,000 in fines.
That blows the mind of a lot of people. $50,000. No animal's worth $50,000.
Hunters can get a once-in-a-lifetime tag to hunt the sheep, but that costs as much as $160,000. And with poachers decreasing the population, the hunters may never be able to find the sheep. Hunters are not the only people concerned about the state of poaching. Conservation groups like Defenders of Wildlife are also sounding the alarm on the current situation.
Poaching being as heinous a crime as it is, it affects all wildlife species, whether it be game species such as elk, deer, species that people hunt or seasonally harvest. But then it also affects, like I mentioned, species that are threatened or endangered.
Defenders of Wildlife look at the ways that solve the poaching problem as a 3-prong approach. Shristi Kamal says Oregon started taking major steps to address poaching back in 2019.
So when the legislature funded the Stop Poaching campaign, it was sort of our first recognition of like, yes, it is a concern in Oregon, and yes, we have to do something to address it.
The Stop Poaching campaign relies on people like you to step up and report when you see something. You can stay anonymous and be rewarded up to $1,000 for your tip. In some specific cases, you can make much more from the Oregon Hunters Association tip line. Outside of your tips, Oregon State Police go out into the field for several sting operations this time of the year. Senior Trooper David Herman and Lieutenant Doug Schugert are leading this operation in the northwest part of the state. They're setting up a specific decoy here because of the issues in the past. On this particular day, they're looking for people who have the wrong tags for this unit, people who are shooting the wrong kind of animal in this unit, and people who are just flat out poaching.
Definitely in the last 4, 5, 6 years, we've seen a huge increase in poaching issues, specifically in this area of our county.
But it's so much more complicated than just setting up shop in the woods to catch people. What about all that sea life?
Well, as a commercial fisheries, there's a lot that goes into a lot of regulations with the amounts that can be harvested, and the seasons, obviously. In the markets, how we determine that is basically just doing inspections and things like that.
While it's difficult to say when and how poaching in the state of Oregon improves, one thing is for sure. If you like seeing wildlife and nature, you play an integral part in keeping it there. Kendall Swank, KGW News.